very nice that she did. So
We all set, Jackie? Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order for March 22nd, 2017. So first, if we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For everyone's information, emergency exits are located on either side of the auditorium and in the rear. Before we get started with our usual business, I have two comments to make first. The first is I want to address some alternative facts that have been going around, been coming to us for the last couple of days, and that is the purported closing of Riverside School. I want to state categorically that has not been discussed. It has not been considered to be discussed, nor is it anticipated on being discussed. So a disservice has been done to our community by the spreading of these rumors, and if anyone has any information or facts that they would like to give to us, I certainly would, please do so if you care to privately, and I certainly would like to hear it. So, but I can state unequivocally that this has not been discussed, it hasn't been contemplated, and nor is it anticipated. So I want to have the Riverside community, as well as the rest of the district's fears, be allayed. Second, for the first, we have had since the beginning of the school year a committee that has been looking into alternate enrollment options. This committee has done yeoman's work throughout its formation. It has had two board members, two administrators, central administrators, as well as representatives from each of our 5 elementary schools. They have exceeded the expectations tremendously. This has been difficult from its inception, and they have reached a consensus based upon the studies and the work that they all did together. And to that we owe them a deep set of gratitude. That being said, in the last couple of meetings, and in our last board meeting in particular, there was, in my opinion, an attempt to divide this community in half as to having an inequality built into that policy that just would not suffice. So as of tonight, this policy is coming off the board entirely. It is not going to, it is not, even though it is on the agenda, it will not be discussed this evening, other than I can tell you that it is coming off, and it will not be contemplated. There's no anticipation of it being contemplated in the near future. So it's unfortunate because it was, as I said, there was a consensus reached within the committee. A lot of time and effort went into this by all of the members of that committee, and I would like to first personally thank them all, but the policy was, even though it wasn't perfect, it was workable, and it could, it would have gone to helping the entire school community in terms of equity and distribution of students if particular students were to petition moving. So that being said, we will get into our regular portion of business. And first, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And approval of the financial reports, please.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the approval of the financial reports? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? A motion acknowledging receipt of financial reports.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion from anyone? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any correspondence that we have received that is able to be posted has done so outside. Moving on to what are the highlights of I feel, of our meetings over the many months has been our students coming and telling us and showing us and really taking the opportunity to educate us. So I give this to Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Tonight's really a special evening. It gives us a great opportunity to celebrate the arts, or some of the arts here in Rockville Center. Tonight we're going to really focus on music and the visual arts. And we're going to start with the elementary schools in Wilson in particular. Hillary Broder is the art teacher at Wilson School, and she has brought two of her students along with her tonight, and they're going to make a very brief presentation on some aspects of the program that we have at Wilson School. So Hillary, if you wouldn't mind, please joining us. Thank you.
Thank you all for having me. My name is Hillary. No. Thank you. My name is Hillary Broder. I am the art teacher at both Hewitt and Wilson School. Today I am here representing Wilson School and our art program. I have Lily McGrath and Jack Preston here, both fifth graders and excellent art students. I wanted to tell you about a program that I started at Wilson it's called BioArt, and it's a combination of art and science. So I wanted to go a little bit through that. We have some artwork to show you up there, down here. Okay. So basically, it's understanding that so much of art is inspired by science and nature, and it is a term that also identifies that science can be a catalyst or inspiration for many art projects and mediums such as photography, drawing, painting, collage, etc. Even making art from biologic materials is being done, such as in petri dishes. Of course, we're not doing that at the elementary level just yet. Technical difficulties. Oh, okay. So thanks to the RVC Ed Foundation, I wrote a grant and we were able to get some materials and supplies to supplement our curriculum. And we got handheld microscopes, an actual TetraView digital microscope, and specimens such as skulls, insects and resin, minerals, and other slides and materials that we can use to make art. So these are some cell studies. After learning about the different types of cells, I would have these up on the smart board, the bottom diagrams, and the students were learning how they would choose either a plant cell or an animal cell, and we used watercolor and different things to mix with it, such as rubbing alcohol and salt to get different textures, and they actually learned about the cells as well as making art inspired by that. Crystals and minerals. We looked at a lot of different crystals and minerals and talked about how they're formed, where they're found, and we actually created geode sculptures out of Model Magic clay. The students built everything and they learned about techniques such as pinch pots, building little pieces to build the crystals, and trying to emulate how they're actually formed. They painted them with watercolor, added glitter, of course, because crystals are sparkly, and they came out with these beautiful original sculptures. So microscopic images, these two did this with me in fourth grade. I stuck with it with fourth grade. It's pretty amazing. So we talked about what a microscope is I believe I skipped a few. There we go. What a microscope is, what a microscopic image is, because a lot of these students were not aware, and talked about that it's an image that you can see close up without, like, beyond the naked eye, what the naked eye can see. And so that's actually a model of the microscope that we had access to, and there are these great handheld microscopes. They have a little screen on top, so rather than putting your eye up right to the microscope, you could actually hold it. And we experimented with a lot of different materials. There you go. And you can see I gave each student, each table, different supplies and materials to look at, such as feathers and pom-poms and sand, and just to see the different textures and what happens when you looked at it up close and then zoomed in even farther. And it really, things like sand completely blew their mind because it was very dramatically different. Just a teeny tiny microscopic piece of sand blew up. So they drew from these, and I also had images in full color. There you go. For the students to create, and so we worked with microscopic images, and I have some examples here. My assistants would like to hold. So I'm going to hold this one. So these are, we created these with, do you want to tell them?
We used oil pastels, I think.
Yeah, we use oil pastels. It was last year for these guys. Oil pastels, and we were able to pull in other types of art. It's not just doing the oil pastels, but also they learned about color theory as well. So complementary colors. So we weren't allowed to use black. They had to mix their own colors. So it was really learning about microscopic images, learning about science and an aspect of it, and then able to create artwork from it. So they did an amazing job. Very impressive. And then fifth grade, which these guys are working on now, we're learning about insects. And my main goal, besides learning just about that insects are kind of cool to draw, they are actually very helpful to us in our environment, and everything from honeybees to insects that aerate the dirt, they really have a big purpose. They do our dirty jobs. So we talked about that and how they're very helpful, and they practice drawing them a lot. And then eventually, so you can see I actually, through the grant foundation, was able to get these great insects in resin, and they can really look at the little mechanics and the parts of them, and they were drawing them, so we have some of their drawings. These are light. So you can see, that one's that way. Very nice. And so we learned about the different parts and why they look almost like little robots. Jack, do you remember why?
Yeah, because of all the tiny parts they have, you can really get into detail of what they look like with, like, well, you can't do this with like a marker. You need a very thin pencil to
Very
do this.
good. So what materials did we use?
We used pencils.
Colored pencils.
Colored pencils. Did we do oil pastels?
No, for these we just use color pencils.
Oh.
But we're building on it. Very good. And they have exoskeletons, which make them look kind of more like robots, so was appealing to many different people. And so they came up, our final product, which these guys haven't gotten to yet this year, is going to be a combination of things. It's a different type of artwork, so it's artwork that's on a printed text, and it's about insects, the text behind it, and then their drawings are in colored pencil, and again, using color theory, building upon what they had learned previous years, and blending and adding shadows, and it has a really interesting look. And it's just a way to appreciate something that you might have thought is gross or icky. And kind of a lot of this stuff is. It's things you might not have thought about, like the microscopic images. Who really thinks about what Velcro looks like up close? But it's actually kind of interesting and pretty. So it's a nice way to open their eyes, to become more observant, and tie in a really critical part of academics into the art room.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lord. Excuse me. You all want to come back here? We're going to take your picture. Does anyone want to ask some questions while they're up here? Anyone down here?
What was your favorite project that you did?
My favorite project was a project I recently did. It was paper mache mask. Yeah, that you could paint down, and you could add like feathers to it, or you could also add pipe cleaners.
Ooh, that sounds wonderful. Yours too?
Mine too, yeah.
So that wasn't necessarily the bio art part of it, but they
Okay.
really did very well with those.
And now the bio art goes on into the high school.
Yes, the middle school and high school.
And in the middle school?
Yes,
Ah.
yes.
So,
Yeah, it actually started when I was at the high school. I was teaching at the high school. We helped write a grant for it, and then it's just always something that I've been really interested in, and I don't know why, drawn to the bugs for some reason. They're
I don't know
cool.
why, but,
And then, so then the younger level responds amazingly to it.
I would think so. Are you looking forward to continuing bio art in the middle school and high school? Yes. Fabulous.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Picture. Picture? Picture?
Please. Yep.
Now,
Show some artwork with it.
it's,
Why don't you grab your artwork?
oh, yeah, that's a good idea. You're so smart, Nita. Thinking, always thinking. Fabulous, thank you.
Want me to do something
Thank you.
like this? Do I have to shut it down, or?
I'll just announce from here. Thank you very much. We want to move on now to the next phase, and actually, we don't generally have our board meetings in this room, but if you have any wonder about how we feel about the arts in this school district, then you will understand why we need a room this size. It is the incredible support that's provided not just by the system, but by the families in this room to your children. We want to share an opportunity tonight to celebrate the work that they have done. And so I'm going to ask Brian Zuar, who is the director of both areas of art tonight that we are going to celebrate. So Dr. Zuar, if you would please come and start with the visual arts.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And just another word of praise, yes, another word of praise for Hillary Broder. She gives professional development presentations to art teachers from Nassau County through the Art Supervisors Association for the past 2 years, Hillary, or more? Past 2 years, and she gets lots of art teachers interested in this, and I'm glad that Ms. Dion alluded to the fact that the curriculum is shared across the elementary, middle, and high school level. So it's wonderful sharing that goes on. We got great art teachers here. So in your agendas, I know that the all-county music students are listed first, but I'm going to start, since we're already on art, with the art students. For a few years now, we've been participating in the all-county art exhibit. Actually, Hillary also led the way with that, with elementary students, but this year we had a significant increase in the number of middle and high school students whose work was selected. I'm equally proud of our art teachers for the work they do with our students and for encouraging them to aim higher and aspire to hone and perfect their skills. So the following students participated in the All-County Art Exhibit at Farmingdale State College on Sunday, March 12th. The art was exhibited. And from the elementary level, they are Ife Allison, Henry Preston, Ava Seidenstein. If you could come up and get onto the stage with Dr. J and Mr. Mason. I'll call the middle school students as well. We have Ella Delman, Priscilla Grima, Jonathan Kolars. Yeah, come on up to the stage as I call your names. I'm sorry, I should have told you that. Jonathan Kozlars, Isabel Liu, Paul Matta, Janelle Melendez, Marissa Merkrens, Brendan O'Connell, and Casey Shargell. That's the middle school all-county students. And our high school all-county art students are John Havel, Joseph McNair, Sarah Martello, Ciara McDonald, Brooke Warner, and James Wu. Sure.
Okay, 2 rows, people.
I think we're going to need to, perhaps somebody can go up front.
Parents, don't be shy. You can walk up and take a picture.
Guys, if just pass me, you can just...
Any of our pictures that we take are available on our Facebook page for the district, so you can always copy off that.
Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Go anywhere?
We're waiting, parents.
Get in the middle.
So we're going to move on to our all-county music students at this time. Last year I had the opportunity to have a reunion with some students I taught many, many years ago. I was discouraged to find out that students who were my first cohort to graduate high school when I was a high school teacher turned 50 in 2016. Discouraging. But I am in touch with some of my former students, and we had a reunion, and then they participated in a Facebook page and made some comments to me and some of my colleagues, music teachers. So one student wrote, "Music teachers are so important. The gift of music is so precious. It's one that your students will carry with them their whole lives. Music helps you express your joy, escape and heal emotional pain, and when you play in a group, it helps you create bonds and incredible lasting memories." Another one wrote, "I had amazing teachers in all my subjects. However, being part of the music department, that's what continues to shape who I am and who my children are today. In college, I was pre-med and stressed, but being in the band made me whole and made my 4 years there great. Music brings joy to us as human beings. I hope and I expect that years from now, some of the young people who are about to come up to the stage will write similar notes to their music teachers." Not only did these students, the All-County and All-State and All-Eastern and All-Peak and all of those things, not only did they exhibit their musical skill, but they exhibited fine character. During their rehearsals and performances, whenever I had the chance, I looked in on those rehearsals, and I have to tell you, I heard from their conductors, and everything I heard made me proud of them and proud of this community. So at this time, I'll start calling we'll start with the Peak students. That's parents and kids making music together. That was held November 19th at Malloy College, or was it the 14th? It was November 19th, Malloy College. So the parents and kids performing music are Alexandra Ali, Daniela Agrondizo. As I call your name, you can come up to the stage and get ready to pose for a picture. Sophia Bowman, Zoe Dwyer, Miles Erdos, Samantha Fanuzzi, Jack Galliard, Daniel Gonzalez, Evangeline Groshans, Lily Hubler, Annie Kalakin, Max Levine, Benjamin Meyerhofer, Amelie McLaughlin, Alice Miller, Elena Mignorance, Imani Northington, Maeve Powers, Connor Riley, Connor Stack, Rosemary Tollefson, Giselle Tolson, and Jonathan Tomasoni. These are our peak students.
Can you guys make 2 rows, please? Maybe anybody with hands in the front kneeling, and then standing in the back happiest?
We need somebody to go up front. All right? And if you would just take it, yeah. There you go.
Okay, guys, if you're standing in
Gentlemen,
front,
if you could just take a knee. There we go.
Perfect. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Another one.
Anybody else?
Okay, we're good.
Our next group participated in the Long Island Strings Festival concerts. The elementary concert was March 3 through 5, just recently, and the secondary concerts were in the fall, November 18 to 20 in Manhasset. The elementary concert was held in Uniondale. I'll start with the elementary students. We'll get all of the Long Island Strings Festival students up together. So the elementary students were Kirsten Clark, Erica Flaherty, Catherine Grassi, and Yoha Maliner, and Sophia Shackham. And our secondary Long Island Strings Festival students are Matthew Byrne, Tina Johnson, Victoria Liu, Liam Maliner, Laura Marin, Catherine Medeiros, Josh Mercado, Angela Surial, and Peter Weiss. Let's get all the string students up.
Joshua.
Always, yeah. Lauren will pose him if you want.
Victoria, don't get me.
Can you guys make 2 rows? Sorry. Okay, so if you guys sit in the front, you could just get down on 1 knee, 2 knees. Perfect.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, sorry. One more.
If only I had won my Fitbit today. All right, so now we're going to go on to the all-county students. I think we have to take them in their grade level groups. Let's start with all-county elementary music students. The festival they played at was held on January 7th at the Tillis Center. And they are Catherine A. Hearn, Sean Byrne, Elizabeth Colefelter, Heather Cuevas, Maeve Ferrick, Erica Flaherty, Sophia Gonzalez, Catherine Grassi, yeah, come on up as I'm calling your names, Benjamin Greenberg, Reese Haley, Madeline Hansen, Francis Hazen, Andrew Lyons, Yoha Maliner, Paul Marquardt, Molly McKill, Margaret Miller, Aidan Monahan, Michael Murray, Robert Namnum, Sebastian Olivares, Bianca Honorato, Ava Parker, Ava Paternostro, Jayla Regis, Kelsey Reinhold, Maggie Russell, Sophia Shakam, Isabella Selekia, Alexandra Sim, Natalia Skodzicki, I'm sorry, that's wrong, Skrodsky, Natalia Skrodsky, Kiernan Suto, Leanne Truesdell, and Alex Vargas, our elementary all-county.
All the center. And we need a row kneeling. Come all the way over to that. Okay, a few more. Okay, 2 more kneeling, I need. 2 more kneeling. Okay.
Big group.
I know, I feel like we're in the picture too.
And once again, any pictures that Lauren takes are available on our Facebook district page.
I don't think we're in the one. No, we're not. No, I don't think so. They're kind of above us.
Time to keep smiling.
It's amazing how the camera's been replaced with the phone's been replaced the camera.
Okay. Ready? Look this way, big smile.
Keep smiling.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, our all-county middle school students, their concert was January 13th and 14th at the Tillis Center. And the middle school students, you can come up as I call your names: Ariana Alamo, Sarah Baruso, Madison Brower, Isabella Coles, Skylar DeLuca, Toby Dwyer, Riley Johnson, Tina Johnson, Joelle Lincoln, Alexandra Lucas, Ava McCabe, Corinne McEtrick, Catherine Medeiros, Devin Mullen, Jason Peterson, and Jaden Wetstein.
Yeah, I know.
Hi, Dad.
High school all-county. The concert was on January 15th at the Tillis Center. And the high school students are Melissa Aliata, Julia Baxley, Tom Buzzy, Liam Chung, Lily Cole, Connor Coniglio, Kyle Keneally, Michelle Cosares, Julia DeLuca, Will Dragovich, Raman Davuri, Megan Fahey, Rita Gentile, Madeline Getty, Anthony Giangregorio, Nicole Graziano, Connor Grahan, Jamie Hatter, Samantha Horowitz, Liam Itkin, Thomas Kelly, Victoria Liu, Liam Maliner, Laura Marin, Caitlin McDonald, May Murray, Hannah O'Connor, Julia Pandolfo, Nicholas Pandolfo, Anna Rodriguez, Tess Siegel, Angela Surial, Avery Trump, and Peter Weiss. High school all-county. And finally, we have our All-State and our All-Eastern students. The two All-Eastern students are also All-State, so I'll just ask Tess and Liam to stay here once you come up. But the All-State students performed on the weekend of December 1 through 4 at the Eastman Theater at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. And I should note that Tess Siegel was an All-State jazz vocalist. We don't get a lot of those every year, but an All-State jazz vocalist is kind of a big deal. We're very proud of her. And Tess Siegel and Liam Maliner will both be at the All-Eastern Conference at the Boardwalk Hall Adrian Phillips Ballroom in Atlantic City, coming up on the weekend of April 8th. So, the All-State musicians, Lily Cole, Liam Maliner, Tess Siegel, and Peter Weiss. And we'll take one picture with the four of them, and then Liam and Tess can stay for the one picture of the All-Eastern. And it is what it says, ladies and gentlemen, the best musicians from all over New York State if they made All-State, and the best musicians from the entire East Coast if they made All-Eastern.
Those sneakers on, let's go.
Should have to perform something. Give him a microphone.
Can't see me?
Lauren?
This is the, All-Eastern.
I take the picture.
So just a big thank you to all of you parents. I know it's a lot of sacrifice to get kids to lessons and early morning rehearsals. And if you've attended any of those, all counties or all the states, you know, or at least you know how inspiring those concerts are. But it's thanks to this community, to you, to this Board of Education, to my colleagues, the principals of the school who are so wonderful to work with in coordinating all these programs. It's a great school district, and I'm very proud. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our students, our faculty, and certainly parents for one, getting your kids here if they're for those rehearsals and lessons and such. But it's a real testament to our teachers who, from early on, are able to take young children who have learning an instrument or participating in voice for the first time or in art, and then nurturing them all the way, as you can see, to rewards through high school. It's fantastic to see this every year. So we thank you really very much. Oh, and I thought you all wanted to stay. Okay, we're going to give it just a moment for people to leave. Okay, and we're going to proceed with our agenda, and the next item is items for information and autism awareness. Yes, Dr. Leahy.
So thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you tonight about the Rockville Center community's efforts to raise awareness about a developmental disorder which has become increasingly more prevalent and continuing to be a puzzle despite much recent research. Autism spectrum disorder is a bioneurological developmental disability. The term spectrum reflects the wide variation of challenges and strengths that the people that are diagnosed with autism have. Individuals with autism typically have difficulties in verbal and nonverbal communication, social interactions, and leisure and play activities. Autism is diagnosed 4 times more in boys than girls. Its prevalence is not affected by race, region, socioeconomic status. Since autism was first diagnosed in the United States, the incidence has climbed to an alarming 1 in 68 in the United States of America. Autism varies greatly from person to person, and no two people are alike. The rate of autism has steadily grown over the last 20 years, and it is the fastest growing developmental disorder. To put it in perspective, Rockville Center schools, over the last 10 years, of the children identified under the autism classification category, that number has risen from 17 to 40. Nationally, Autism Awareness Month is celebrated in April of every year. The district celebrates through various classroom and district-wide activities to educate staff, students, and their families on the disorder and to help promote inclusiveness and understanding. This year, as part of our awareness campaign, our district SEP leadership has been selling spectacular puzzle piece bows, which you can see in front of all of the board members and administrators. The interlocking multicolored puzzle piece has become the national symbol of autism because autism itself continues to be such a puzzle to solve. Public awareness of this disorder is crucial. And by displaying these bows throughout our village, we will be sending a strong message of support for the families of children on the autistic spectrum. It is our sincerest hope that hundreds, no, thousands will appear on the houses, lampposts, and fences of Rockville Center residents. So who is making all these bows, you ask? Well, we are blessed with the parent leaders of our SEP, which are special education partners, and their members, who partner with me, the district, to raise awareness, fundraise, provide scholarships, and support the work of the district in many aspects of our special education programs. Our SEP PTA Vice President, Regina Salakia, and Liz Licata, who just completed her term in this position, are here tonight to talk to you about this year's autism and awareness activities.
You hold both? Okay.
Hey everyone, I'm Regina Salakia. This is our 3rd year celebrating district-wide autism awareness in Rockville Center. Each year, SEP works with Dr. Leahy to come up with a new idea to spread awareness. Our first year, we sold Autism Speaks blue bracelets, and all proceeds went back to Autism Speaks. Last year, we sold puzzle piece pins, and all the proceeds went to the Tommy Burrell Foundation, an organization that helps support many activities for our special needs children. This year, SEP was able to work together to make these beautiful bows. This year, our proceeds will be going to our SEP scholarship program to our core children that will be graduating. In addition to our fundraising efforts, we also incorporate autism-themed activities into the lesson plan at each of the various Rockville Center schools throughout the entire week. A few things we have planned are videos about autism that children will watch, books for all ages that will be accompanied by a review sheet, and all grades and staff members will decorate a puzzle piece and write something unique about themselves inside. The puzzle piece will be proudly displayed in the school showcase or hallways. For our children in the middle school and high school, we have special education students reciting poems and quotes related to autism, diversity, and inclusion in the daily morning announcements. To conclude Awareness Week, we ask students and staffs to light it up blue, wearing blue clothing and accessories to school on Friday. Each year, we are getting more and more support through our community. SEP has a wonderful team of mothers that put a lot of time and effort in making a difference in our community. Thank you for everyone for their support and help.
So under the category of It Takes a Village, I recently had the pleasure of meeting two Rockville Center residents, Mary Lou and Tony Cancellieri. Mary Lou and Tony have started a grassroots campaign, RVC Speak, Blue Speaks, to get the word out and to help raise money for autism research. Partnering with the national organization Autism Speaks, RVC Blue Speaks is a local campaign that is part of the Long Island Autism Speaks chapter. State Senator Todd Kaminsky has recently asked Mary Lou to serve on the New York State Autism Advisory Board in light of her tireless advocacy on behalf of the special needs community. I've also asked Mary Lou to come tonight to tell us a little bit about her story and her efforts.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me. It is quite an honor to be here, and I would also like to thank Dr. Johnson for all his wonderful leadership in our school district. You have set the bar high, and our children have achieved it. Tony and I have 3 children who we raised in Rockville Center and who have gone through the system, the Rockville Center School District, and have gone on to higher education. So we're very proud of being a member of this Rockville Center District community. And I have now 3 grandchildren in Rockville Center, so the legacy goes on. I wanted to thank Dr. Leahy for inviting me to come to speak to you. And I'd like to introduce Rockville Center Blue Speaks. Tony and I created this campaign about a year ago. It's a grassroots campaign, as Dr. Leahy said, where all our proceeds go to Autism Speaks. We felt a need to do something to bring awareness and acceptance of children with ASD. Our beautiful, smart, and loving grandson, Louis, lives with ASD. We wanted to enlighten our neighborhood. Little did we know, so much was already being done by the school district and SEP. And it was my pleasure to meet Liz and Regina last week to hear about all their efforts. So Rockville Center Blue, RVC Blue Speaks, is a little act of kindness for the autism community. We want to spread our love and acceptance for all the ASD families. On April 1st, RVC Blue Speaks will light it up blue, celebrating autism awareness at the Choral House. We invite you to come, and if you can't, perhaps you can buy a raffle ticket. I've left some brochures or copies on the table in the lobby. It's a great opportunity to win a weekend at Woodlock Pines. And as already mentioned by Dr. Leahy, I am humble and elated to represent Long Island on the Autism Spectrum Disorder Advisory Board and be a voice of Long Island to Albany. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak to you at the Board of Education meeting. Good night.
So probably at risk of death, Liz, could you just tell everybody how they could order a bow for their homes?
For their homes. Currently, I have posted on RVC Moms and RVC SEP our order form, but anybody, and I'm not going to remember the address, anybody can email our SEP address. God, you put me on the spot. I don't remember off the top of my head. There are order forms out on the table in the lobby as well, but if anybody emails the SEP address, which is on the district website, if you go to Noreen's page, we have an icon where you can click on it. It links you right to our SEP page, and our email address is on there. I monitor it. It will be addressed and handled immediately, I promise. I've been doing home deliveries. So anybody who doesn't have a child in school can absolutely reach us that way, and we'd be more than happy to get the bows to you then.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our budget discussion. I had said at our last meeting we would go into staffing at this meeting, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Johnson or to Robert.
We provided you with a brief overview of what we anticipated some of the changes. We've arranged the information by building, and I think it would be appropriate for us at this point to have Mr. Bartels just commence the discussion with a review of that information for the board and for the community. So, Robert?
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. This sheet should have been outside on the front table as you came in. The way it's organized is I really have 3 boxes here. The largest box is a summary of all the general staffing changes. If you were at our previous budget discussions, you heard me say that we're going to kind of roll all staffing forward, so there will be no change in our staffing projections. So there was no, plus or minus dollars there. But here you see there are changes within that. So we're not increasing the budget. We are within our overall staffing that we have for the current year. The second box is contingency staffing that is in the budget of $210,000. That's there if for all of the staffing changes that we're not anticipating at this point in the school year. And then the last box has to do with permanent subs, and we'll, I guess, discuss that in a little while. That was generated after a discussion at our last budget discussion regarding substitutes in our buildings. So we'll talk about that toward the end. So going from the top, at Covert, we expect to be down 1 section. We have 3 sections of outgoing 5th grade and 2 incoming sections of kindergarten. So that would result in a reduction of 1 teacher at Covert. At Hewitt School, we were expecting, we have 4 outgoing 5th grade sections, and we are expecting 3 incoming kindergarten sections, so we would be down 1 teacher at Hewitt as well. We do expect to be up 1 teacher at Hewitt, special education teacher, due to a split into 2 sections of our RISE program, which is working out wonderfully over Hewitt School. Also due to RISE, we'd be up 1 teaching assistant and 2 aides for the expansion of that program. And there'll also be an increase in speech of about a 0.3 of teacher services, about a 0.3 of their time. At Riverside School, our current kindergarten is 25 students. We are expecting, we believe 1 student is moving out of the Riverside area for next year. So there would be 24 students, but even with 25, we would be looking at 1 section in next year's 1st grade. So that would result in a reduction of 1 teacher. At Watson, we have 2 departing 5th grade classes, which are both over the cap. They have 2 sections with more than 25 students in them, where we have typically provided a teacher assistant for any class sections above 25. So we will be reducing 2 teaching assistants from Watson School. At Wilson School, we're actually seeing an increase. We have 3 outgoing 5th grade sections and 4 incoming kindergarten sections. So that would require an increase in 1 teacher at Wilson School, along with an increase in aid time, because this will be their 4th kindergarten and they have an aide assigned to their kindergarten class. At the middle school, we have seeing an enrollment increase. We have a reduction in 8th grade. The 8th grade students leaving are smaller than the 5th grade students moving up into 6th grade. That's going to require the increase of 1 teacher. It also is going to require a slight increase in French. We're seeing another section of French take place in 6th grade for next year. We also have 2 teachers who right now have been exempted from one of their classes to coordinate the MYP program. Beginning next year, both those teachers will have their classes reinstated, so they will have full schedules. So that would equate to the equivalent of a reduction of 0.2 in each of their sections. The high school, we have a number of changes going on. Because of our inclusion program and the students enrolled in that, we expect to be up 1 special ed teacher. We have an increase in our business classes due to enrollments. We'll be up 2 sections of business. We'll be reducing our IB film classes from 3 to 2. We also have a reduction in some of the art electives due to low enrollments. Due to an increase in enrollments, we have an increase in a wood design, and we also have the addition of coding class. So that's all pieces of teachers, as you can see in the chart. We are also asking for an increase of 1 custodian because of the building addition. We have actually 8 new large student bathrooms, group bathrooms, which is chore in and of itself, along with the additional space requirements that we've added to the high school. We're also asking for 1 security guard for night events. Typically, we have security all day, but at night, this building is very active, and while we have supervisors monitoring each of the events that are going on, we don't have a security person kind of here in the lobby overseeing everything or directing people where to go. So we'd like to have 1 person here at the high school, because virtually every night of the week, we're active here in the high school.
What do you do with that security guard when there's nothing going on at night? Still in position? You're going to look to rotate them, or?
If there's nothing going on at all, we would have them rotate in with the other night security staff that we have roaming the district.
Would he or she also possibly be qualified to, drive the security vehicle around? Is that something you've thought about? Or is that a completely different type of certification or position?
No, they would be qualified to do that, as long as they have a driver's license. That
we do run short sometime on that position, right?
Yes. District-wide, we're also looking up some pieces in different buildings. I believe the projection at this point was an increase in speech at the middle school, Covert, and I don't know where the other one was, and Wilson School. We're also looking for an increase in a grounds position. Several years ago, we reduced one person from our grounds department, and I think it's been showing in the quality of the way our buildings look, in the gardens and beds and shrubs outside the building. So I would like to get 1 grounds person back to help address those needs.
And if I could just add, I know people have said, well, you got the turf fields, you don't have that much grass to cut. And I was wondering if Carol can possibly just touch on the amount of work that the grounds crew has to do to maintain that field. If she's here. She's here. Oh, there she is.
On a monthly basis, we have to basically groom the field, clean the field. That takes time. We have to put up netting and take down netting between practices and games. We still have to maintain culvert in terms of lining the field. I'm talking the spring at this point, but lining the fields for softball games and, for baseball games, both middle school and JV, and for practices. There's still a lot that goes into it. They still have to, for all, wherever we are, that we still have to set up for every event and break down for every event. I don't know if I answered that question, but.
Does. Thank you. My point is that even though we don't have grass growing there anymore, we still have to maintain it.
We don't have to seed, but we still have to maintain it, and that will make the life of the turf last a long time.
Thank you.
This position isn't specific for sports, it's in general for all the maintenance of buildings all around.
Correct.
So,
yes.
it's been lacking because the position was, someone left the position, right, years ago, and it was never refilled.
A number of years ago, we had a person left, and we did not fill it as part of our budget cuts in that year. So in total, we have an increase, when you add up all those pieces, we have an increase of 1.5 teachers, a reduction of 1 teaching assistant, an increase of 3 teacher aides, and 3 CSEA custodial maintenance staff. The next line there, I should really have put RISE in there. That's all due to the RISE program. When I say less staffing covered through added revenue, reduced cost, students from out of district who participate in the RISE program provide a revenue to the district, as well as every other student that we have from within the district that is in that program saves us money from going out of district. So that increase in staffing is fully covered by those additional revenues or those reduced costs from another part of the budget, which would have been allocated to provide our in-district students with an out-of-district placement. The next line is the 3 CSEA staff members. I had actually already included in the budget. I didn't have that in as an increase. So that's left with a small change of an increase of 0.2 of a teacher's time, a reduction of 2 teaching assistants, and an increase of 1 teacher aide. When you put that together with our estimated costs on a budgetary basis, it shows that we should be under budget by about $15,000 in overall staffing needs. On the contingency staffing, we have projected, in case we have increased enrollments, I mentioned we're expecting reductions in some of our elementary sections. If we do see enrollments increase, that we need to have an additional teacher there. We have 1 teacher in the budget for contingency. In the same way, if we have additional inclusion students, which require us to open up another inclusion section, if we need an over-cap teaching assistant for a class that may exceed 25, if we need a 1-to-1 teacher aide, I have now 2 teaching assistants and 2 teacher aides as contingency in the budget. So that's a total of $210,000. That's just the way I broke it out. We could end up with more teaching assistants. We could end up with 2 teachers and no additional teaching assistants. But that's how I broke that out for budgetary purposes. Now we get to permanent subs. We had discussion with all of our administrators yesterday. The last budget discussion, we talked about the increase that we have in our substitute line. We actually had an increase of $100,000 in our budget for substitute costs. That was based on the expenditures we had last year in the 15-16 school year to kind of bring us up to that expense. We had talked about some different ways in how to address those costs. We've been having a lot of difficulty finding substitute teachers to cover those absences. So in discussion with the principals, we felt that if we added one permanent substitute in each elementary building, 3 additional permanent subs in the middle school, and 2 permanent subs in the high school, we would have those additional staff members here on site to address the absences. So we wouldn't be in so much of a need to be out looking for those daily permanent subs. There may be occasions at the high school and the middle school where we might still need to go outside, but we would hope that those increases would, for the most part, cover the absences that we're running into. There seem to be a great fewer number of people available for substitute work, and the quality of those individuals has lacked a little bit. So that's been our projections. If we plug that into the budget, based on the costs of those staff members, it would still come in within that $100,000 increase that I had proposed. Part of that is due to, as part of this process over the last couple of weeks, I've gone back and looked at our exact spending patterns for this current school year. And while last year we spent $1 million more than we currently had budgeted, for this year we're well under that number. So last year we spent about $1,050,000, and it looks like we're going to end up spending probably $950,000 this year. So we should be within, even adding these substitutes, we should be within our total substitute budget for next year.
So in the budget line is the money that you spent last year on subs still?
Correct.
The increase amount is what you're proposing be absorb the, the hire of the permanent subs. So we still have money in the budget for substitute teachers?
Yes.
Same as same as last year's budget line, but you're looking that it definitely won't increase because you're adding these permanent subs.
Right, correct.
Yeah, could I just comment on that just for a moment? I know that we did have a discussion about a couple of strategies for, in fact, improving the probability of getting substitutes or quality subs into the building. We did a little research and found out that school districts who pay considerably more, and as you probably are well aware, the range in Nassau County is from about $85 at the low end to a high of over $150 a day. What we discovered is that school districts who pay $150 many times have exactly the same problems as we have. So in the discussions with our principals, the strategy that we landed on really has to do with the permanence of assignments during the school year. And I think that that appears to be a better way and a more economical way for us to deal with the issue. One, it does give people an opportunity to work with a school district for an entire school year, which is much to their advantage when in fact they're looking for employment down the road. But the second piece is that when we did the calculations, just to give you some round numbers, if you take a look at the model that we put together right here, it comes into about 880,000 in the aggregate for 180 days with the total number of subs, which I believe is what, 46 in total?
It would be 49 in total with this increase.
Yeah, 49 for 180 days. So we think that that would in fact go a long way to solving the problems that we have within the school district. Keep in mind that at the elementary level and at the high school level, and at the secondary level rather, when we run into trouble, while in the past we've always given permission to both the middle school and the high school to bring in outside subs, we don't have that same permission at the elementaries. So they live with whoever they have. Where we've seen absenteeism begin to affect instruction is with the teaching assistants. So that's the reason why we opted to put into the elementaries an additional one, but at the same time knowing that in the event that we needed additional people in the school district at the secondary level, we could in fact draw upon those additional people.
Permanent subs are not under anybody's contract. It's just a per day schedule. Is there any way you could provide us with a guideline of hiring them, how they're hired, what's expected of them? How is that put out to someone you're looking for as a permanent sub? I'll ask the principals or I'll ask the administrators.
As you know, when we hire a teacher in the school district, we get involved in it, but when we deal with both the hiring of permanent subs and teaching assistants, it essentially stops with the principals. So I'd be very happy to have any one of the principals to jump in and describe what it is that they do. I think the process is identical as it is for the hiring of any teacher in the school district.
But
So,
being there's no contract, you know, the expectation of what the district expects from a permanent sub is what I'm looking to, you know,
Yep.
find.
Trustee, can you turn on your microphone?
I'm sorry. Is that on? I'm not speaking into it.
Oh, you turned away.
Thank you.
I'll speak for at least the elementary, I'm sure middle school and high school as well. When hiring a permanent sub, it's very similar to hiring a teacher within the school district. First of all, they need to be a certified teacher in New York State. So it might be a little different than hiring a teaching assistant. And generally speaking, when we hire a permanent sub, we're looking for someone that possibly we could groom to become a classroom teacher, someone that could take over a leave replacement if someone was to have a baby or another circumstance. We were actually speaking about this yesterday in depth, and because at the elementary level, we have not been able to go outside other than the assigned permanent subs we've had. We've unfortunately had to pull people from our guided reading, had to pull people from various different locations to cover classes when people are absent. There have been a lot of absences due to illness this year. There have been multiple flu things going around, and that's just not in Rockville Center, that's all over. So we've been hit kind of hard this year, and also because of the fact that the number of inclusion sections have gone down in the past couple of years, we've lost some of those TA positions. We are finding it harder to cover classes. So we are in hopes of getting an extra permanent sub in each of the elementary schools. We know that will satisfy at least the day-to-day operations in our school, and we won't have to actually be pulling people from other venues in the school to cover positions. But I guess the main part of the question to be answered is we would only hire someone to be a permanent sub that we would hope would be able to be a full-time teacher within our schools within the future.
My question is, there's no contractual obligation or responsibility. How do you, how do you get, how do you ask, what do you ask of the permanent sub? How do you assure that they're going to perform right for you? And if they don't, how do you make sure it doesn't?
Well, that's what the good news is. They are day-to-day, even though they're a permanent substitute, we can, if they're not satisfying what we need, we can terminate them at any time.
There's no length of stay, we're not obligated to give them any notice or anything? Okay.
yeah, but Darren, or one of the other principals, you may want to describe a little bit about the process that's involved. It's very similar to exactly the same process that we use to hire a regular classroom for a regular teaching position.
We'd interview them, sometimes ask them to do a demonstration lesson, use the references. I mean, as we do with anyone in the school, but for a permanent sub position, as I said, because we're linking it to someone that could take over a class, we would want to see them in action.
Understandable. I understand that you're looking for you're always looking for the best candidate. But if they have if they're not bound by a contract, I just want to make sure that you have the ability to let them go the next day if there is an issue.
We do.
That you're not bound to that person.
We do.
Clearly, while still treating them fairly as an employee. I mean, it would have to be an egregious mistake to terminate a person on the spot. But if there were patterns of behavior, of course we'd address them formally and in writing before doing so.
Okay.
Are there questions?
The permanent substitutes are also mentored in our buildings. So they are not only in different classrooms working with tenured teachers, but they also, on their own time, do a mentoring with teachers in our building as well.
And do they receive the same professional development as the other staff?
They are able to take some of the professional development, not all of them, but they're able to take some of the professional development courses that are offered. Right, isn't it?
Also with our permanent subs, when they're not being used to cover a class, in other words, the staff is at 100%, we assign them to a home base. So I'll assign them to 2 kindergarten classes, a special ed class, to help strengthen those areas where extra help can be certainly used effectively with unique situations. So they are almost like in a co-teaching situation when they're not assigned elsewhere.
How often are we at 100% though? It's
not often.
It's not a
not often.
Not a day,
no.
a regular occurrence.
I've had the permanent substitutes work with teachers on planning field trips, on working on new projects that they're doing in their classroom. I try to expose them to every aspect of the school day, and that's the way I found some excellent teachers that we did hire. They are either come in as teaching assistants or permanent substitutes, but we always promote from within, and that's the pool of teachers that we are grooming in the elementary schools to be the teachers. Whenever we have somebody go out for a medical or pregnancy, that is who we choose to do the long-term leave replacement, and it has worked beautifully. I didn't have that opportunity at the high school because the certifications were different, but in the elementary school, everyone has the elementary certification.
And are they used to fill in for the TAs if they're absent as well?
Yes, absolutely.
And so for the high school and the middle school, how are they used? Because certification is so different there.
They're not. The first preference always is to assign a teacher to a class as a substitute within their license area, but that is not always possible. It's a best fit scenario, but they do teach out of their own license area with regard to substituting.
Are they afforded the same opportunity to become coaches and or club, advisors?
Sure. Preference would be to a full-time teacher within that because of the permanency of it. But they are afforded that opportunity, and it does happen. We, for instance, in our fledgling robotics club this year, we received an inordinate amount of help from one of our permanent subs, Mr. Dolan, who really stepped up at a time when we needed it.
In terms of athletics, it's always if they're qualified.
Anyone else have questions? Okay, my turn. First, Liz, on the RISE program, can you go into how these children have been integrated into the Hewitt population?
The new classroom?
Well, just what you have now, and then talking about further with the additional students who will be joining us next year.
We currently have 5 children in our RISE program, and they are integrated into kindergarten every day. They go into the kindergarten classroom, they participate in guided reading, they participate in movement, art, recess, lunch. I think I talked a little bit about Fabulous Friends at the last board meeting, where students from kindergarten are now going down and visiting room 7 and spending part of their day in the RISE classroom. So it's a two-way integration, and it has been wonderful. For the new class, we do not have students who are in that class yet, but we will do the same thing with the new
Liz, you want to take a minute and just describe for us what RISE is? Not everybody in the audience knows what that is.
RISE is an acronym. It stands for Reaching Individual Success Every Day. And we have children who are autistic in that classroom, who are minimally verbal. And that has been our emphasis, really, to enable the students to communicate and communicate effectively with everyone in our school. The program started in September, and I could not be more pleased with the staff that Dr. Leahy, Mrs. Young, Dr. Middleton, and I put together for this program. Miss Julie Degnan is the classroom teacher, and one of the standout qualities that she had was having a music therapy background. So every day, part of her interaction in her classroom is singing to the boys. She also plays the guitar. and she's had them mimic back to her, and they sing their responses back to her, and that has seemed to really open up a lot of communication for many of the students. I'm very happy to see the children pushing in and taking part in Wilson Foundations, which is the reading program that we use in kindergarten. It's just worked out so beautifully. Miss Maureen Murphy has been doing the speech services. Mrs. Lisa Rostron has been doing the occupational therapy. Miss Rory Primrose has been doing the physical therapy. It's I want to knock on wood, but there's no wood around here. But it's been beyond my expectations, and I'm only hoping for more and more success with integration into the classrooms.
Thank you. Maureen, we currently have one class of 5 students with 1 teacher. We're going up to 9 for next year anticipated, maybe 1 or 2 more, with an additional teacher.
Correct.
Well, why do we need the 2 aides?
Well, the classroom is set up as an 8-1-2 classroom, meaning 8 students to 1 teacher to 2 paraprofessionals. What happens, though, in the course of the day, the students are integrated into classes, need to be escorted to related services, and people need lunch and breaks in their day. So with 2 classrooms, it'll be impossible to have just 1 aide in each classroom.
Well, currently we have just 1 teacher.
1 teacher, one
aide.
teaching assistant, and 1 aide.
TA. Okay. Okay. Next question I have is in Wilson, Mr. Recupera.
Yes.
Yes. Next year, you're going into anticipated 4 kindergarten sections, each with less than 25.
Correct, yeah. 74 registered and 4 packets that are
4?
hanging out there.
Okay.
Yep, up to like 78 right now.
Okay. And why do you think we need an aide for that, for one of those now?
I would challenge any teacher to be in there with 20-some odd kids in kindergarten. All our kindergarten classes have an aide for anywhere from 5 to 6 hours a day. And the aides supervise lunches, help with escorting the kids, bathrooms, and so forth.
They also cover preps, Tom.
Okay, but that's then not necessarily reflected on this chart.
The preps are covered by our teacher assistants during the specials, yes.
Okay.
I'm just going to jump in. Mr. Cooper, I don't know if this is on. Where are we putting this class?
Well, Dr. Johnson's coming to see me soon. I have several plans. I have several plans, and the one that I like the most is taking the 2 smaller rooms next to the media center. Currently, it's a special ed area where small group instruction is, and then the other areas for small group instruction for AIS. I'd take special ed, put them upstairs where math AIS is, put them both together, and this way I wouldn't move music or art or orchestra or band lessons, and I would create that new classroom downstairs, which is approximately 600 square feet, and our traditional rooms, although they're small, is 660 in Wilson School. I put a 4th grade class in that area because it's too far removed from the bathrooms, and put one of the 4th grade classrooms as closest to the kindergarten children currently, down where the 2 me-end classes are, and there will be 3 down that end and 1 down the other end. That would be my number 1 scenario. There are others.
Wow. Okay. Look forward to seeing what happens next.
Yeah, the reason why it says we have to come visit is that it would be a work in progress in that we have considerable amount of reconstruction of that facility in the event that we choose to go down that road.
Right.
So we've agreed to go over and take a look at it with Tom. I think it's a very creative way of solving the problem without, in fact, interfering with either art or music in his building, which I know has been a priority over the years.
Were those two rooms, one room at one point, or no?
No, they've always been 2 rooms that I can recall, right, Tom?
There were always 2 rooms, unless before I got there was a computer room, a large computer room. I think it was. It's a temporary non-weight-bearing wall.
I know the issue of a
in
bearing
between.
wall. I don't believe that it is. So we're going to take a look at that. But if we can go down this road and, in fact, solve the problem for the Wilson community without affecting art and music, we're going to try to do that.
But that will be a decision we'll have to make earlier, rather. I mean, we'll have to make it before the beginning of the summer so we can plan to do that construction.
That is correct, right. But we're not there yet. We're very close, but we've got to take a look at exactly what the facility would look like, and we'll come back to you with a plan.
Okay, no problem. I guess, Jen, you're back there. Question about the enrollment in French going into next year. It's increasing. How many additional kids have signed up?
We currently have 82 requests for French 6, which increases it from 2 sections this year to 3 sections next year.
Very good. And okay. So kids are not continuing with, I take it, with Spanish for the
Our
extra
numbers
year?
are similar in Spanish this year as they were to last year. It's a larger class coming in for grade 6, so those numbers have increased overall. Spanish 6, we have 222 students.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But, so French isn't dying, is really what he wants to say, right?
It seems to be growing this year.
Because that was the fear when we put in FLES, that French would just disappear.
No.
It's growing.
Yes.
Speaking of FLES, which elementary principal wants to give me a quick rundown as to its effectiveness and how the kids are doing with it? What? How? Who hasn't spoken?
Pick somebody.
I'll pick somebody? Or you'll pick it?
Chris.
Mark, I could jump in on FLES. I just actually visited, I was reading over at Wilson Park. Thank you, Mr. Recupero, for inviting me as always, and popped into a 5th grade FLES lesson as I walked by, and students, as always, I saw were engaged and enjoying their lessons. We've had FLES for some time now, where those students are going to reach the high school. We have seen improvement in their Spanish-speaking language skills, try to say that, throughout the years. 6th grade, as you recall, did have to adjust their 7th grade and 8th grade had to adjust curriculum as they moved through so that they could cover more topics because our youngsters were doing more at the elementary level through the FLES program. They also instituted a little bit of a initiation for youngsters in kindergarten. They worked with the Education Foundation the past couple of years and were able to purchase books, and they get into the kindergarten classrooms at the end of the year so that they can start to prepare students for 1st grade for their new experience with FLES.
Thank you, Chris. Now can I hear from an elementary principal?
Well, I think that some of our teachers feel that it's very entertaining. The children really enjoy most of the classes, but we find that as the children are leaving, a lot of them are thinking, well, they think they'll switch to French. And that's a conversation that we have among ourselves all of the time, whether or not maybe we're starting Spanish too early in school, and maybe we would go towards the 4th and 5th grade, and the way it's scheduled currently, which is a 30-minute period, is really a difficulty in the school because our schedule is usually a 40-minute period. So even moving in the future maybe to 2 40-minute periods instead of 3 30-minute periods. That's the discussion we've been having among ourselves.
Okay. Do other elementary principals feel the same way?
I absolutely agree. And I think the teachers at Watson feel very strongly
that 2 45-minute periods or 40-minute periods would be much better. It is somewhat disruptive to have the 30-minute periods. It doesn't fit in with the rest of the specials in the building. I also see that our children, by the time they're in 5th grade, although we have a fantastic FLES teacher, they've had it, and they have to be talked into taking Spanish in the middle school. If you walk in and ask them what they'd like to take, they'll tell you they'd like to take French. They're sick of Spanish. So if we started Spanish in 3rd grade or 4th grade, I think that we would see something different, and I think there'd be a lot more excitement for them when they go into the middle school to continue.
Okay, and Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that the numbers in 6th grade are generally consistent.
Generally, we're down a half a section from last year to this year.
Okay.
So but the numbers are tight, so that may change. We often have some last-minute children switch from one language to the other.
And what about the competency level of their Spanish as they're coming into the grade? Can you speak to that at all as far as how it's helping progress their abilities?
Yes, generally what we find the teachers commenting about is the comfort that children have and the ease in which they speak. In years past, when they come into the middle school, that's usually the most difficult piece. They're embarrassed. They don't want to get up in front of their peers. They don't want to try out something new. Their comfort level has gotten much better, but the skills and the application of those skills are still somewhat underdeveloped and have to be reinforced heavily in 6th grade, repeated in 7th grade, and then again in 8th grade there is some sense of advancement.
So possibly the embarrassment portion of it from elementary has gotten them over that hurdle and given them the opportunity to try French since they've already gone over that hurdle.
And I would agree with what Joan said, that many of the kids come in and are ready for something new and often wanting to try French.
Mrs. Walden, you said it like it was a negative. Is that a negative?
In what way?
Is it a negative that they want to switch from Spanish to French?
No, I think our hope was that they would want to continue in the middle school and that they would be more proficient. I do believe that we could achieve that if they started it a little bit later and they didn't start it in the 1st grade. I think after 5 years of doing it, they're looking for something different. But I think if we started it in 3rd or 4th grade, I think many of them would have gained a lot and they would increase their speaking, their skills. In 6th grade, they wouldn't switch so rapidly. Some children just want to learn French, and that's fine. You know, it's not a problem at all.
Paris is a nice city.
Paris is a wonderful city. So is Spain, and so is South America. And yeah, I mean, you know, there are reasons for wanting to learn many languages. But I do think that starting it later on would give them a better chance to have a desire to continue taking it in the middle school. And we've heard for the past few years from children that they just want to switch. They've had enough. And I don't think that that's good. I think that's a negative.
Mr. Murphy, have you seen a change over the last few years by the time it gets up to the high school?
Long-term, in terms of participation rates, looking as far as the senior year, our participation rates at the highest level of French and Spanish, which would be IB French and Spanish 6, fluctuates between 70 to 75% of the graduating class every year. The last 2 years, it's been at the high end of that, 74 to 75%. French participation increased in the last year. Whether there's a cause and effect, I'm not able to speak directly of, but participation rates has gone up, and the French results last year were better than they were the 2 years before. I'm unsure as to the cause and effect of that.
And the proficiency of Spanish?
Has been fairly stable throughout. It's relatively high, preceded it. My hope was that to get more students taking higher level French, Spanish, those numbers haven't increased significantly yet.
The fact that they start a foreign language at a younger age regardless of what that language is, the exposure to the foreign language and the fact that they're both French and Spanish are Romance languages is the Spanish is likely to help the French should they decide to switch in middle school. Is that true?
It could be true, yes. Depending on what's taught, how it's taught, yes. Cognates are similar.
Right.
The vocabulary development, yes.
So that could explain part of the increase in the...
It could. Pronunciation is diametrically opposed.
Different,
It wouldn't
right.
help us a whole lot.
Okay. Tom?
One of the questions that I would ask is, does it make a difference during these economic times where we're looking for money to provide the necessary things? When you look at FLES, it's a wonderful program, don't get me wrong. The kids experience wonderful things, the projects that they do, the songs that they sing, the culture that they learn. They're learning a lot. Is it necessary to do it at the primary area in grades 1, 2, and 3? No. No, it's not. Would they come out the same if you did 3, 4, and 5? I would venture the same. Is it nice to have it? Yeah, it is. But if push comes to shove and you have to look for some money someplace, you say, well, did it make an everlasting effect? And you heard from Jen Pascarella and John, it's difficult to tell at this time. Well, we've been doing it now for quite a few years. I think it would have been significant enough to be evident whether or not that made that effect. And then lastly, our teachers are struggling for instructional time all the time, particularly during these times in which teachers are evaluated on test scores and so forth. If we gave them extra instructional time, it would be like a Christmas gift every day.
Well, I just wonder from listening to everyone at this point whether a slight modification in the amount, the time of the period of which they are taught, as well as maybe looking if the kids are seemingly becoming, I'll use the word, bored with it by the time they hit 5th grade. Is it something that maybe we need to modify our curriculum just a bit to re-engage them in some fashion? Because having been a true advocate for this of FLES at its inception, I certainly wouldn't want to see it just, you know, the core tenet of it, which was to immerse these kids or get them, introduce them to a foreign language at a young age, that I wouldn't want to see that disappear at this time. Just, you know, when we haven't tried other things to.
I don't think anybody wants to see it disappear at this time, but I do question the younger ones with their acquisition of language and reading skills and so forth. Until they get into 3rd grade, are they ready to really start doing something?
As I said to you earlier, having been in Mrs. O'Leary's 2nd grade class this afternoon, these kids were teaching me. I wasn't teaching them or reading them a story.
Okay.
They were truly marvels and excellent in their abilities.
I think it was a couple years ago we talked about the fact that the 5 years that they were in the FLES program, that they had entered the middle school. And I think by 3 years now later, they're entering the high school stage at this point. So I think, to ask Mr. Murphy to expand on how it's affecting the high school, I'd really like to see some kind of comparison as to when we started this program, how it's affected the middle school, and I think at this point it's probably coming into the high school. But more importantly, I was wondering if Chris could just talk a little bit about that and the program itself, because I see him twitching over here.
Well, certainly, FLES started, I believe, actually prior to my arrival. It just had started to begin. There is a great deal of research that has gone into decades worth of research around FLES at the earliest levels of elementary school, even beginning in kindergarten. Language acquisition. Our youngsters are sponges and can certainly have the ability to absorb their English language and a foreign language as well. I've seen it myself and again, have read a great deal of research about it. And I know research was part of the reason, part of the data that we looked at when we made this decision. There's also a great piece of cultural awareness that goes with our FLES program. Kids are celebrating different events that take place in different countries throughout the world. We've incorporated some of our social studies program into the FLES program, so it doesn't take away so much time from what's happening in our classes already. So I would venture to ask parents and students insofar as their experience with FLES and how they feel about it. Obviously, I think it's a strong program. And yes, we have talked several times of late about maybe a tweak in terms of the 40 minutes a couple times in a cycle, twice in a cycle, instead of 3 half-hour periods in each, three times in a cycle, because we recognize that came from that half hour is a tough piece to schedule, and Mr. Cooper was really a master at scheduling it. When he's struggling with scheduling, then we know that there's an issue around scheduling, and I know the other principals have talked about that as well, and struggles around that. So that might be something we look at. I'd hesitate certainly to start to cut it back to 4th grade or 5th grade. I'd struggle with that decision.
And I think we should be clear that the current 10th graders are the first ones who took FLES. So they haven't really hit that higher level IB yet, where they would do that. So it's taken a long time.
I can recall 2 years ago when we did have 3 sections as well at the middle school, and speaking with a youngster who told me, well, I learned Spanish already, so now I want to learn French. And I thought that was a great answer, and they felt that they went through the process to a point where they wanted to try a new experience, and I think we're seeing some of that as well. And we do have a much bigger class. We have 306 kids going into the middle school, 6th grade, and currently there are 258. So there's a big difference there, and I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing more kids take French as well. But I certainly want to support what the principals are seeing as well. They are in the classroom far more than I am, with their students far more than I am, and speaking with their parents as well. And it's something we'd have to take a look at.
I think the consensus from the principals is well, from what I've heard, is too many years. So maybe it's a thought to look into maybe reducing it, taking it up 1 or 2 years, cutting it in half that way, and enhancing the later years. And that might give the middle school better results. Because the middle school seems to say they still have to go through the basics just to bring the student up to where they should be.
I just wanted to add something I saw the other day. I was in 5th grade FLES with Senora Hauser. I'm not seeing children being done with Spanish. The emphasis that she had was on having them write in Spanish. So they have gotten away from the reluctance to speak out loud. She also emphasizes conversation, so they're asking each other questions and answering in Spanish, which I think is such an important goal. I see them delighted to go to FLES. I do find the programming of it challenging, but I'm not seeing kids being done with Spanish at Hewitt. They cheer when Senora Hauser and Senora Jones come into the classroom. So I do find it challenging that 3 times for 30 minutes in a 6-day cycle. That is a challenge for me, but I'm not seeing kids being done.
It's difficult also to measure. We've historically had great success at both the middle school and the high school with foreign language, Spanish and French, and 99, 100% kids passing regents and things like that. So it's difficult to say, oh yeah, they grew from this year compared to the last year when the measures, the bar is set so high.
What we'll do is use this as an opportunity to go back and revisit it, and I think it's time for us to take a look at it again. Lots of questions. So I don't have any problem whatsoever of preparing something for the Board of Education before the end of this school year for us to take a look at some modifications that we may wish to make for the upcoming school year, and in fact then monitored very carefully as these kids move into the 11th grade this coming year.
Okay. Moving on, my questions to the high school. Mr. Murphy. Up 2 sections of business. What are those numbers? Do you know? The numbers in business? Up to
In the
sections?
individual courses or overall?
Oh, just overall.
There are 10 sections of business every year. Those are comprised of Intro to Occupations, which is an introductory course, business law, accounting, marketing, entrepreneurship, IB Business 1 and IB Business 2. Because of the growth in the IB Business program last year, there were 3 sections of IB Business. Next year, there'll be 3 sections of IB Business 1 and 3 sections of IB Business 2, which comprises 60% of the entire business course offerings.
Okay.
In an effort, the reason for the increase is to not curtail the introductory courses that we offer for a couple of reasons.
Okay, well, that's good. This is good.
That's great.
Okay.
All right, so can we assume that most people who took IB Business 1 are taking IB Business 2?
You can assume every single student did.
That's impressive.
Yes.
That's great. That's a nice retention rate.
Moving on to coding, our new coding class going into next year. How many kids have signed up?
'82. So 4 sections of 20 plus.
Okay.
Each course.
And I guess you're starting to check into where they go from there for the next course in the sequence.
We're looking at it, and the professional development has already started. We have an April 4th workshop in BOCES experience with called Microsoft Touch Develop, which will be the introductory program for the 4 sections, and take the professional development from there.
Okay, and that's a half-year course? And so in terms of the staffing number that is reflected here, the .2,
the initial...
It's okay. Is that for the first course or for the year?
That's for the year. The initial intent when I introduced it was that I could absorb the coding without going up in staffing. That didn't allow for the fact that because of IB Business, our participation in the IB diploma rate went from 50% of the graduating class to 67%, which had unintended consequences. 2 of the sections of coding were to be taught in the science department, but as a result of the increase in the IB diploma rate, IB Environmental Systems went from 4 sections to 7 sections, from 73 students to 119. So that teacher who I had allotted for the coding class could no longer be freed up because they were teaching IB Environmental Systems, which would result in the increase in .2. The other .2 is in the art department, and that I could absorb without offering fewer electives in the arts.
I thought there was a reduction in the arts.
No, there's not a reduction in staff.
On our sheet, there's a reduction in arts of .4.
And .2 for film.
Well, the .2 for film is the number of staffing. Yes, the number of sections in IB film is being increased. That's being compensated for by the fact that our play productions teacher is not returning, and the teacher who would normally be teaching IB film studies will now be teaching play productions instead. In terms of the art, there is a reduction in 2 sections of art due to enrollment, but that is compensated for by an increase in wood design, which was traditionally taught by an art teacher. In other words, there were 4 sections of wood design, and that teacher was teaching 1 section of art. That will go to 5 sections of wood design due to enrollment increases in that, which is, in the strictest sense of the word, wood design is a technology course, not an art course, but it's taught by a dual certified teacher. He will assume 5 sections of the technology course, not 4. And one of the coding sections will be taught by an art teacher.
So there will be multiple teachers for the coding
Correct.
class.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
Anyone else have questions on staffing?
Our facilities is increasing, 1 for the high school, and that's to cover the existing addition that we added to the high school?
Yes, that's correct.
Is it a combination of both both wings, or just the one in the back?
Currently it'd be the one in the back. Since the bond, we've put an additional approximately 49,000 square feet to the high school. So right now, the staffing is trying to cover the shift and do the additional work, but it would definitely benefit the building by the one additional cleaner to maintain that area. With the bond, we've also added an additional cafeteria, doubled the size of the weight room, so the areas within the building have expanded.
And the external maintenance grounds, is that for painting? What is that? What is that person going to be doing?
That groundskeeper will be assisting the groundskeeper we currently have. We currently have 2 groundskeepers to maintain all the grounds, the fields. One groundskeeper with the start of sports, we lose from maintaining the beds and the grass areas. His responsibility is for lining the fields, grooming the baseball fields, taking care of the new synthetic turf fields. So we lose him in the fall and the spring, leaving us with one groundskeeper to maintain all the beds, the grounds. We also have to pull our one of the other staff members to assist in cutting the large fields, which results in not getting the grounds equipment repaired in a timely fashion because he's been pulled away from his job to take care of the larger fields.
Thank you. While I have you, Dr. Johnson, I just want to thank you and the facilities staff for the wonderful job they did in the last snowstorm. They did an outstanding job in getting our schools up and running, and I just want to say thank you.
Not me. I mean, John and I, and Robert, we meet beforehand to plan the whole thing, but quite frankly, they're out there doing that work, and they did a fabulous job.
They do an amazing job of getting our schools open so that our kids can be taught, which is nice.
Thank you very much. We have a great team here.
Any other board member have questions on staffing? If there's any member of the audience who would like to speak towards staffing on this budget, as we have been doing, please come to the microphone. Give us your name and address, please.
Michael Mulhall, 115 Lincoln Avenue. My only question about staffing would be around the contingency budget for hiring teachers mid-year. We still don't have a good sense of when the next tranche of Avalon is going to come online. I know it's targeted for August, and I think the concern is that predominant amount of the apartments in the second tranche are 3-bedroom, which would suggest families more so than retired or single individuals. And have we allotted for the fact that we could see, not maybe initially in September, but possibly in January, the potential for a disproportionate amount of students to come online as a result of people moving into the facility?
Well, we do have some data as to the number of apartments that are coming online in phase 3, and I think
we've had some discussion about that, and I don't know if was the enrollment outside. Yes. On the table outside. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at the enrollment.
I did take a look at it, but when I was listening,
the answer to your question is yes. We've looked at it. Is there any way to know who's going to be able to afford a $4,500 or $5,000 3-bedroom apartment? The rents in Avalon, as you probably are well aware, are well in excess of what people pay throughout the village for other rentals. And so it's pretty difficult for us to predict exactly the proportionality about what that threshold, that fiscal threshold is going to impact, or what kind of an impact that's going to have on families when in fact you know that the exact amount of money that they would be spending on rent, they would also be able to use to purchase a home in this community. And so we're somewhat uncertain. However, we have to put together plans for next year. We believe that the contingency money that we have in there will in fact cover that. If you take a look carefully at the numbers of kids we have in each grade level at Riverside School, for the upcoming school year, knowing full well that all of those kids will in fact be zoned. So I know there was some talk about a large number of three-bedroom. There are 16 three-bedroom units, 42 bedrooms, 53 one-bedroom, and 60 studios.
Okay, so the number of 50 was, or predominant amount is incorrect.
Yeah,
So
we
16
had heard much the same thing, and we just checked recently, and that's what we found, was that it's a lot less than what was originally, I guess, had either been proposed or discussed or rumored.
Okay.
So what we did was, and Mrs. Bach was part of that discussion the other day, what we're trying to do is to take a look at very carefully, and if you sit down and study that very carefully, you'll see that we can accommodate with what we have, I believe, in the contingency budget, any of the increases that we might anticipate. We have 20 kids district-wide from Avalon, and they have 349 apartments. This is 168 apartments. So we don't anticipate another 20 kids in the district, and if you take that and split it in half of them go to the middle and high school, half go to Riverside. So there really is a good deal of uncertainty, but we have to believe that we're going to get at least 10 kids at Riverside School in this upcoming school year, and I believe that we can accommodate that number. And that the contingency is built in so to
reflect that.
Yes, to reflect that. And you'll see that even if you take a look at Riverside School, and Mrs. Bach, you may want to comment on this, we should in fact be able to accommodate that.
Now, I'm very convinced that we can accommodate the students that will come to us from Avalon, especially knowing that there's a contingency in case we need to do something at any one grade level.
Yeah.
Terrific. And
I'm glad you brought that up, by the way. We were thinking about talking about it anyway, but it did come up yesterday in the principals meeting. We spent a lot of time reviewing it.
And I appreciate the fact that you've cleared up the ambiguity in the sense that you've done the due diligence to know the composition of what apartments are coming online and give us a sense of what we can and cannot expect realistically. I guess the only thing I would add to that is, do we know when, if any, they're scheduled to open?
Yeah, they're supposed to start selling in May, last week in April,
But they won't be completed in May.
And they're supposed to start having people move in sometime in July and August.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've never had where if, say, we got 5 kindergartners and it would jump the class level that high. We've never split after the start of school. Is that something we'll talk about at a point where a grade level becomes so high at Riverside? It may or may not happen, but that's never been.
Well, if the apartments are starting to be rented in late spring, early summer, we will have some advance notice because the parents would register their kids at that point.
But that would be only partial. They'll start in increments. If it builds up to a level in January or February,
but I understand that hypothetically, that's a question, but if you sit down and go grade by grade by grade by grade, and go take a look at the Riverside population that we currently have, and then ask that question, you begin to realize that is not going to happen.
Okay, but we've never had an issue where that this possibility is there. So I believe that we should have a discussion about what the possibility would be in January if we were to get 7 kindergartners, as per se, and that would throw the grade off. You don't know. I'm just saying. You know.
We have had the possibility. We've dealt with this before.
When?
There was a year, I'm going to say 4 years ago, Joan, at Watson, where we were at 28, and then we thought we might go to 29, and we talked about, we kind of said we're going to wait and see what happens, and then you drop to 27. We deal with it. I don't know if you had secret talks or not so secret talks.
By the way, John, just so you know, it's only been in recent years that we made the decision not to split after the opening of school. For the first 20 years that I worked here, we used to split it. The split date was October 1st.
But I think we need to have a conversation of what may happen if it happens in the middle of the year. So we've never been there, at least.
I don't think that's going to happen, and the reason I don't think it's going to happen is that I think Avalon is going to have well, maybe, I mean, they'll be very upset and disappointed if they don't have their units
Rented.
rented by the summertime. I suspect that they're going to have probably 80 or 90% of them rented. So the influx of people that we might anticipate then during the school year is just not going to happen.
But just to John's point, arbitrarily, if 15 kindergartners move in
15
January,
kindergartners.
the board will have the ability in
Absolutely.
January to discuss that, debate it, and
Yes.
make any changes in January if the board sees fit.
If, it's all about instruction. The answer is yes. You know as well as I do that this board is not going to let a situation get to the point where it deteriorates and is going to have an adverse effect upon instruction. So yes, you can do something about it in the middle of the year.
30% of
And
the
even-
Avalon studios.
And even 15
Your odds are
kindergartners
less likely.
doesn't throw it out.
Right.
But it added to the 28.
Also, if you talk to people at Avalon, you would know that there's a pretty lengthy waiting list of people who would like to rent apartments there. I don't know what the composition of those particular people or families is, but given that they do have a waiting list, I would imagine that as soon as those apartments, the new apartments come online, they're going to be rented pretty quickly. So given that, we should have a pretty good sense by August. Not saying it can't happen, but, we should have a pretty good sense by August of what will be going on.
Yeah, but at the same time, getting back to the question that was raised just a few moments ago, is there a contingency in the budget to deal with that? And I believe that what we have there in the budget, we'll be able to deal with the contingency before the opening of school.
And if it's not, we typically
The
find a way to
yes, you do.
Hi, Katie Conlon, 63 Broadway. I just wanted to make a comment regarding the FLES. I was kind of saddened to hear that there was some, feelings that it was being started too early, and I can appreciate, or I can't, but I understand the scheduling difficulties, but I've got 3 kids at Hewitt who love the program, and just last week I was at Pioneer getting my boy's haircut, and they're both there in 2nd and 3rd grade, and they're having conversations with Jose in Spanish. Granted, very basic conversation, but I just thought, they're not too young. They really, really enjoy the program, and I just think it's something that's worthwhile and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is only on the budget, right?
Correct.
Just checking.
Okay, we're going to move on. As I indicated earlier, I'm sorry. I forgot. Revenue. Robert.
Just a quick update on revenue. I talked about this at some of the previous budget work sessions, but just as an update to everybody. The tax levy is going to be going up 0.75% under the tax cap. That's about $685,000 in total. That's going to be passed on for the taxpayers. So that's, I believe, the smallest amount we've had in, I can't remember when, at least 20 years. We have, biggest reason for that is this large influx of state aid we're going to be getting beginning next year, and which should continue for a number of years. It's an increase of over $1.6 million, and that's really the aid on the bonds. We've had debt service coming into the budget over the last couple of years, the last of which is in next year, so all of our debt service for the bond will be fully in the budget. We've not been able to file for our state aid until we completed all of our projects, which we have done this year, and we're finishing up some of the last ones now. So we'll be getting to get that state aid beginning next year. So that's really the largest reason that the tax levy is down so much, and we're able to support the other changes that we have in this budget. Some of the other revenues that we have an increase of $200,000 in tuitions from out-of-district students who are attending our RISE and CORE programs. That brings that total revenue up to about $2.4 million. So we get a lot of money from those programs, which benefit everybody. Some of the other revenues we have is another increase of $239,000 due to increases in summer school, some of our interest income that we get. some prior year refunds. We get money back from various things, usually from BOCES, where we spend money. They do a reconciliation at the end of each year, and then any monies they have left, they give back to the district, so we get some money back there. And we also have a transfer from our retirement system reserve of $400,000. So those are the big increases in our revenue that are continuing to support the budget.
Any board members have questions? Okay. We'll now move on for, as I said, indicated earlier, 7159 is off the table. Moving on to now the opportunity for Superintendent. Dr. Johnson?
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to mention one thing, and that is the upcoming gala. That is the Education Foundation has really one major fundraiser during the school year. You heard earlier tonight when we were talking about the art project at Wilson School. The foundation supported that with a grant. There are many, many similar projects to that throughout this entire school district that the foundation funds. Every dollar that is collected by the foundation is in fact finds its way back into the classroom to help our children in this school district. So I would encourage people to, if they haven't already, they can go on the Rockville Center School website, and the gala is scheduled for April the 1st, I believe at 7 o'clock in the evening, and take advantage of that opportunity. Even if you don't go to the fundraiser itself, you may want to contribute something to the foundation. It's an incredibly well-run, child-centered, and every dollar that's put into it finds its way back into the classrooms in Rockville Center. So that's it on that. My thanks also to Noreen Leahy and to the people in special education for bringing all the attention that they have to Autism Week. As Mrs. Cancelleri was saying, it is really about the community and about this school district and the commitment that we, both as a community and a school district, have to finding the right education for these kids. And I think the RISE program, as you heard earlier today, is one step that we've taken to make sure that these kids have every opportunity that we can provide to them here in Rockville Center. So thank you again, Noreen. So, all right, that concludes my remarks.
Okay. Moving on to board members. Let's see. Maida.
Thank you. In addition to what Dr. Johnson said about the Ed Foundation, and unfortunately, we just heard tonight that the RVC Blue Speaks, sounds like their event is the same night as the Ed Foundation, which is unfortunate, but the Ed Foundation does give back a lot of money to this school district, and our teachers and our staff write grants for really some terrific stuff for the kids. And last week at a curriculum meeting, we had one of our Stellar teachers, Jim Duffy from Hewitt, came and did a presentation on Stellar, and some of the things that are being done in Stellar have been supported by grants from the Ed Foundation. But for those of you who don't know, Stellar is in every one of our elementary buildings. There are, I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, 6.5 teachers, because Hewitt has 2, and Wilson, I think, has 1.5. But they do programs that support and enrich the curriculum that's going on in the classrooms, and then they bring other enriching programs to the students that there might not otherwise be time for in their day. So sometimes they're supplementing the classroom teacher. And you can jump in and correct me anytime I'm wrong.
Doing wonderfully.
And other times they're bringing in completely new and different programs for the students. And one of the programs that was talked about last week was we talked a lot about technology. And the Stellar teachers are really bringing a lot of the technology into the elementary classrooms. And some of you just may not be aware of this. They start with the very basics with the youngest students in kindergarten to, working on an iPad, how do you turn it on? Working on a computer, how do you turn it on? How do you log in? What's a password? They talk about security and safety when using the internet. They teach them about the internet, and they do research, and they learn all about that. And they also use a lot of robots in the classrooms. There are some, is it dot and dash?
Dot and dash, dash and dot? Sure.
Dash and dot. And there are some others, and there's some 3D printers in some of our elementary buildings. So these kids are learning a tremendous amount. That was very exciting. We were shown a project that I believe some fifth graders at Hewitt were doing, where they were building bridges across tables like these that we're sitting at with popsicle sticks. And then they had to take the robot and program the robot so it could go across this bridge, across the tables, and reach a little landing pad. So it was a terrific collaboration of students and teamwork and problem solving, and also learning about physics and math and engineering and coding and programming and robotics and computers. And then they use their iPads to film it all and create little movies. And so it's very exciting, and I just wanted to share what the curriculum committee was privy to last week. Very exciting stuff going on in this district. So you can see that our technology money and our budget is really being put to good use. And it starts at the elementary level, but it continues through the middle school. We know we have a great robotics group and technology at the middle school. And now we're moving into the high school, where Mr. Murphy's bringing us all sorts of new and exciting curriculum. That's all.
I'll just jump in with the high school a couple of years ago received a grant for $10,000 from the Education Foundation on bioart. I think that's where Hillary got some of her ideas to bring down to the elementary level. So that'll be a nice connection again as students move forward to middle school and the high school.
Great. Liz?
Okay, well, congratulations to all the students that were here, and Dr. Jouar. They were fabulous, as always, and your all-district concerts were fabulous, as always, so if anybody catches them on TV. Noreen, the drug and alcohol presentation last night was wonderful. And while we have these every year, and the Say No to Drugs is a great message, this was such a positive message of, it's not just about say no to drugs, but say yes to other things. Yes. So it was a pretty full auditorium also, so it was a great presentation. Lauren, our wonderful photographer, if anybody has not liked us on Facebook or followed us on Twitter, I absolutely recommend you do. Lauren posts on a daily basis what's going on in our district, and it's a lot of fun because you get to see little children playing with robots on a regular basis, or reading books or doing, it's just amazing. So Lauren, thank you, because I know that's a lot of work and you follow up on that all the time. And then lastly, Dr. Johnson, there was a tentative budget that came out, and I wondered if you were able to ascertain what it would do to us.
Federal budget.
Federal budget, yes. How we would be affected.
Well, we already know that Title II is gone, so that's gone, and that's basically the staff development money that came to us through the feds. You know, you saw today in the headline in Newsday the $3.2 billion worth of Medicaid. Remember what the governor had said earlier on this year, and what he wanted to do is to take it upon himself to decide when a reduction or when an expense was driven to the state, and they had to decide how money was going to be spent. He was going to relegate to himself the decision as to whether or not that cut. Now, even though it's a rise in expense because of that expense being moved to the state level, it nevertheless can have a significant impact on schools, because it's, if in fact our legislators allow this to happen, they will not have anything to say about it. He will then begin to make cuts right across the board, including the amount of aid to education. So, you know, he essentially put together a plan earlier this year, which is very tentative, and then has been very careful to try to get through the budget. It has not really hit the press as much as I thought it might, but the real battle in Albany right now is between two houses and the governor on exactly this issue. They do not want to give up that right to have something to say about how local monies are going to be distributed to their communities. So we don't know. $9 billion was pulled out of the education budget. We don't know exactly how that's going to affect us at this point. A lot of the regulations on ESSA, which is the replacement for Title I, which is, we don't have them yet. We just don't know how that money is going to get to us and what it's going to look like when it does arrive.
Is there anything we should be doing? Or we should be asking people who are interested to do?
I thought that when we met with our legislators, we were pretty clear. I've been to Albany and met with our legislators again and joined with my colleagues and emphasized very strongly the need for our local legislators to assert themselves in this budget discussion, that money was an important issue, but retaining the power to make the decision about where that money was going to go was equally as important and should be retained in the budget. So we'll see what happens. If there is an opportunity for anybody in this room to visit with their legislators and emphasize, yes, we do need more money, but I think that, and clearly the one-house bills have come out and shown, I mean, I don't want to get into a whole lot of detail on it, but they have shown so far the willingness to provide more to school districts than, in fact, the governor put into his original plan. That being said, probably the more important issue at this point is abrogating to themselves the right to decide where that money is going to be spent ultimately. That's a huge issue.
Thank you.
Call your legislators.
Go visit them. John?
I'd just like to, the night is getting long, and I'm going to make it short. Just congratulate all the students that we honor tonight. It's a great thing. It's a nice thing to be able to use this room and fill it up. That's one thing that we don't have every time, so it's nice to see all the success in the arts and the music program. Good night.
Mr. Spaulding.
Dr. Leahy, I had the opportunity last night to attend the Drug and Alcohol and Violence Prevention Task Force presentation. I was very impressed. I think it's great information for the community. I think more of those types of events need to take place in our community, as well as with our children in the schools, as far as educating them, and Mr. Pelletier, our staff as well. I think our staff could certainly use some of that information in their day-to-day lives, as we all can. Dr. Zor and the children is he still with us down there? All right, there he is. Thank you, and the all-county, all-state music children, amazing, as they are every year, and they continue to amaze us. So thank you to you and your staff and all those wonderful children. Southside Middle School Spartans will be hosting a fundraising event. I believe tomorrow, I think, is the fundraising at, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but Monahan's Restaurant and Bar in Rockville Center. They're going to be raising money for the, I believe, for their robotics club. So I urge people to support them as best they can. Once again, John, the facilities people, all the custodial staff did an amazing job this winter, and I extend my thanks to them for all the work they've done this year. And last but not least, I'd like to thank the administrators and most of all Robert for working on this budget and dealing with all our questions from day to day, and as well as all the phone calls. Thank you.
Okay. Other than, I'm sure everyone's heard too much from me already tonight. First, Dr. Zuar, I neglected to mention you earlier when we were recognizing our students for their achievements. But it's evident that our administrators, you in particular when it pertains to music and the arts, it's a top-down approach, and you have instilled in our staff and translating into our kids a love of music, a love of the arts, and hopefully it will remain with them for a long time. And to that end, you are also the producer of the high school show coming up in the next few weeks, Thoroughly Modern Millie. So I would encourage everyone to I think it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings, to make some time available and come see our wonderful high school production and watch the kids thoroughly have a good time. So having said that, we will now open the microphone up for visitors. If you have any questions, please come up, give us your name and address.
Good evening, I'm Wayne Fitzgerald. I'm at 27 South Lewis. I've had two surprises tonight that I was just very pleased to experience. The first is the alternate enrollment policy. I just want to thank the board for thinking that policy through and making the decision to withdraw it. I think that's the right decision for the community and wanted to thank you for that. And the second is the investment that Mr. Murphy's making at the high school on technology and coding, and to hear that we already have 80 some odd students enrolling for a coding class. I think that's phenomenal, and over the next few years, Mr. Murphy, I hope you have the opportunity to grow that to a coding 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we bring the kids through it and churn out a few programmers that can go into either directly into coding programs, boot camps, or can go off to college with those skills. I think it's going to be a phenomenal investment by the community. As many of you know, I have filed paperwork to run for Board of Trustee for the school board on the May 16th ballot. We've actually hit 2 out of the 3 of my campaign themes tonight, being technology and as well as transparency.
Excuse me, Mr. Fitzgerald, for just one moment. This really isn't the opportunity to do campaigning at a board meeting, and I would encourage you to find another suitable venue for you to do so. But this is for board business, and I understand that you announced your candidacy, and that's great. But as far as the electioneering portion of it, I think there may be more suitable places for that. But I appreciate you coming up.
Absolutely. But I did also want to raise a point as a member of the public.
Question, fine.
The questions, how much has the board spent time in looking at the revenue side of the budget? School funding is a real issue right now. Our property tax system is a mess, and I realize that is not the school board's direct responsibility, but as the main consumer of property tax dollars, I'd like to hear just how much time the board has spent in working with local legislatures, working with our state legislatures in order to overhaul our school funding
We spend
mess.
A significant time reviewing the revenue portion of this, and what we have found and what many people have come to realize over the last few years with the implementation of the tax levy cap is that there's less that we can affect. Like it is, I think it's like 0.746% is the tax levy increase that we would be permitted. So there's very little that can get done on the revenue side. If anything, we have been fortunate through the guidance of our central administrators that we have maintained staffing, we have maintained programs throughout this implementation period, and it's not going, and the tax levy cap is not going anywhere. It's here to stay at this point. I think everybody's come to realize that. And many districts on Long Island in particular have suffered greatly because of this tax levy cap. There are districts that have cut hundreds upon hundreds of employees, have reduced programs, as it affects the arts, as it affects athletics, as it affects staffing in the classrooms, where students per classroom has increased dramatically. But we have planned and taken a great deal of time and effort, and with the guidance of our administration, so that we are able to, as I said, maintain and preserve our programs. And it's no accident that that this happens. And it happens because of the cooperation between a board and the administration, with our staffing, with our directors, with our parents, and with our students. Everybody working together towards a common goal.
Those districts haven't suffered enough as the homeowners that pay in excess of 2% of their home values in property taxes, which is the average here in Nassau County. Has this board?
If I could just add,
has this board done any coordination or work with any other school boards to address the tax assessment system in Nassau County?
I would say yes, we have done work. We have done work with our Nassau County legislator. We have worked with town of Hempstead people as well. But the county assessment system, we were also party to a suit, I think about a year ago, to preserve the county guarantee, which is important to us, where we as a school district do not take on the responsibilities of doing our assessments in our district, as well as now taking care of the tax certiorari cases. It's a tremendous cost, which if there was a legislative change up in Albany, that would be very difficult for us to bear that cost, as well as any school district in Nassau County.
But there's been no effort, though, to work with the other school districts to just demand change at the Nassau County level.
We have you as
the Nassau Suffolk School Boards Association, Lorraine Della.
Right.
We have worked with the assessor's office. Mr. Bartels and I have gone over to the assessor's office on numerous occasions, trying to get them to change the assessment process, or at least be a little bit more transparent on what that process is, and doesn't happen.
Okay.
And as you know, by the way, one of the major problems we have in our community, as they do in other communities, is the fact that the county allows these law firms that garner probably 60 or 70% of the taxpayers in Nassau County support to go back and then challenge their assessment, and each year they get a 10% reduction. Now, what that means to the people who don't challenge is that their taxes rise. So you end up with this...
It took me 3 years to figure that out, but we finally did.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeff Greenfield, citizen taxpayer, Yuba Court. I will not be a candidate for the school board this year. I did that in 1976, I believe. But I have some questions. Mr. President, you made a very good statement with respect to the success of this school district and the fiscal stewardship under Dr. Johnson's leadership, and why we have suffered less than other school districts. So I ask you again, what I've asked at the last 2 or 3 meetings that I've attended, has this school board in executive session decided to reconsider and take action on the resignation of the superintendent and reject it and reverse it? Have you discussed it? Are you going to take a vote on it?
First, I am not at liberty to say, as I have said previously, the discussions that we may or may not have had in executive session pertaining to Dr. Johnson's letter. And that's really all I can say at this point.
Can we have a public vote on that?
No.
Where the public is present,
I
to
understand.
see if we could reconsider that?
No,
Can one school board member have some leadership
And you
and some
really-
boldness to make a motion to
Well,
reconsider?
You really are taking a position of negotiating on his behalf right now, and I don't think you really want to do that, or I don't think that's your intention.
My intention is for the good of this school
I
district.
understand what your intention is, but we are not going to enter into negotiations of any sort in public right now with...
I don't look at it as negotiations.
Well, I do.
I look at it as leadership.
Well, then we have a different...
And let's move on to transparency and full disclosure with respect to that. And the question I have is, after the point of the public here, there's some, I didn't get an agenda outside, I printed it offline. I don't know how you position the mic under the only light bulb that isn't working here, but maybe I'll move this mic so I could read it better. But I'm glad you're in this room. The ventilation is better. You meet the occupancy laws. It's posted in there. Welcome back to the auditorium, and I hope you stay here, because the other room we spent a lot of money on. It's very nice. It's a lot of high tech, but it isn't meant for a school board meeting when you want the public to attend. So here we have on the agenda, let me just move this a little bit. I want to be close to the principals. These are the people you have in the peanut gallery that do all the work. Okay, I can read a little better here. So explain to me, in the interest of disclosure and transparency, we're approving the following corrective action plan item, what is it, D on the action, and then there's another one, E, another one, F. What did we do wrong that we're correcting? Because the print couldn't be any smaller and the detail couldn't be any less.
Sure. Robert, can you go into that, please?
There are various small changes that are being recommended by our both our internal and our external auditors, and every year we have to go into those and make small recommendations about how we're going to address those issues. So, for example, there's one, for example, that teachers each year, a number of times they question what their salary is, where they are on the salary schedule. One of the recommendations from the auditor was for us to send...
We had an error with respect to that one year, as I recall.
Yes.
Okay.
So they're asking that we provide a letter to them each year, letting them know exactly where they're supposed to be, so they can verify it for themselves. So there are a number of different issues like that.
So why don't we say that on here in plain English? Mr. President?
The audit reports will be on the website, if not already?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about on your agenda. I'd like you to be more descriptive. I called upon you last month. You did about 13 or 14 changes last month without any dollar amount next to it. I think that's not fair to the public.
These are, the overall issue of what you're asking about is like on the personal actions report and such, and this is something that we have started to look into, and at a time we will make a report as to where we are.
The Roslyn School District is now the model of more description on their school website, as well as on their agendas for their meeting, of more detail. It's unfortunate how they got there, but
exactly.
Well, let's learn from their mistakes, and I think the public and the taxpayers now want more transparency and more disclosure, and certainly this board has proven by their actions that they need a lesson in transparency and disclosure, and they owe it to the public to do more. Please. I called upon you last month. I asked you something as basic as putting your bios online.
We have started looking into any modifications that we may wish to consider on our on the website, or what we would provide in terms of additional information.
So when will we hear on that?
We are just in the process of talking amongst ourselves as to which direction we would like to go.
And when do you think we'll get a report back on that?
I would say we're probably talking maybe sometime in June.
Thank you. What about, I'll diary that. What about my suggestion with respect to transportation in this district, the
buses?
number 2 expense behind personnel?
I thought we had addressed that.
Okay.
We came back, I thought you were here when we addressed it as well. We said that it is not economically feasible for us to initiate our own fleet.
No, I understand that. So I further suggested that we explore a regional transportation authority with other school districts in the area.
We are, Dr. Johnson is in fact the head of a consortium concerning transportation. So it's something that we participate in a regional consortium now as well. But maybe not to the extent that you're looking at it from. We're talking about out-of-district transportation mostly.
Just to that point, to some extent, we did. We put together a consortium of school districts in Nassau County. We now operate it through Nassau County BOCES for all the kids who are in attendance in schools outside of the school district. So we do. We work with out of the 56 school districts in Nassau County, we work with about 40 of them right now. And we're still anxious to see if we can't get all 56 to participate. And that includes, by the way, Jeffrey, school districts that already provide, for example, like Roslyn, that do already provide transportation. They actually engage us as a vendor. So what we've done is put together this consortium in order to save, and we've saved probably tens of millions of dollars in the 5 years that we've had it in place. So that I began working with Tom Swazi, as a matter of fact, a number of years ago when we had a grant in order to do that, and this has survived. What we've never been able to do is put together a consortium of school districts to bid for example, if we're Oceanside, Lynbrook, and Rockville Center, to join for their internal transportation.
Right. We've done good work on the BOCES level on the outside of the district, but in my 46 years ago in the school board meetings, I continue to be amazed how we only have one bid bus transportation contracts. And I think that the public wants better today in the 2% tax cap era. We should do all we can to encourage competition and bidding on school buses, because first it was, we were being taken advantage of for many years, as I call it to your attention, by what I refer to them as no courtesy bus company. And they eventually were put out of business because of the way they did business, and they deserve to go out of business. Now, we just have to introduce some form of competitive bidding in the school bus arena, because it is not fair to the taxpayers that to only have one bid contracts on the number 2 expense to the school district.
You are right on target, absolutely correct. And I can tell you that when school districts go out for bid, it's rare that they get more than one bid.
Our routes go out to bid every year.
I understand that, but the results are the same.
Nobody competes with the market. It's locked in, basically.
So maybe that's...
Company A says, they all...
It's a cartel, they carve it up. I understand that, but it's not right to the taxpayers, and maybe that's an appropriate subject for you to engage in discussion with the Nassau-Suffolk School Board Association, because it's not only happening here.
It happens everywhere.
Right.
I am a member of the Nassau-Suffolk School Board.
Do they discuss that issue?
Yes, we do.
Okay. The only other way to do it is to go with a school bus authority. I think that's worthy of it. And in other parts of the state and the county and country, they have bus transportation by the county. We ever think of talking to the people, the parent company that runs NICE? I know they haven't been so nice lately with bus routes cuts, but I think they know something about business. Maybe they want to engage in this business also. But they changed their name from Viola Transportation to something else, but maybe we should start some discussion with them. They do transportation not only here, but in many parts of the country, and maybe there's something they can bring to the table, and maybe they want to enter the school bus arena.
We can certainly have a discussion with them, but there may be a very good reason why they don't. And that is that it's really a problematic market. And even though there are a number of bus companies, as you probably are well aware, who serve different school districts in this area, when any one of the local school districts go out for bid, they will not get more than one bid.
I understand, but I think maybe you could tell me better, are we getting a better product out of the Bauman folks than we got in the past from No Courtesy?
I would say it's a little better, but we run into similar issues.
All right. The equipment is another issue that I worry about with the kids on that, and I think we could do better in that arena. Some of the equipment that runs out there, the rolling stock that does our special transportation, the BOCES is probably better off, and our own buses are better off than some of the buses that I see transporting the kids in the morning. And that's something that, I don't know how you cover that in the bidding, but I think that's something that should be addressed in the future. And maybe there's ways they could go with better fuel options also that are better for everybody and less costly. We got to create an atmosphere, a competition in the bus arena, and we have to push our legislators maybe in that arena also, because it's not right. We have to get some legislator to fight that battle like they fight a lot of the other battle. I think it could be a sexy battle for some legislator to take on. There's big dollar savings to the taxpayers if we finally would get some competition in the school bus arena. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I move this back?
I would like to. Thank you, too.
We'll keep them in the dark over here.
Anyone else like to come up and ask any questions?
Michael Mulhall, 115 Lincoln Avenue. I just want to comment very briefly so we can wrap up the meeting, but the comment is alleged to revenue and the school district's ability to manage budgets and at the same time allocate appropriate resources to the teaching staff. That's excellent in this district. It's quite a battle, but it's beginning to mirror what's going on in the private sector, and I'll just give you one example. Financial services, most people don't necessarily ascertain right away that financial services is very dependent upon technology. And I guess the best example that I use for a number of my clients, that there was a term coined in the Financial Times a couple of years ago, and the term was called equification. And what this one observer, the reporter, had written was that, in his estimation, the New York Stock Exchange had done the best job of adapting to today's standards. And it's an example, but it's very telling. In 1986, when I first started working on Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange employed 15,000 people and probably was able to transact several hundred million shares in a day on a very busy day. And here we are 30 years later, and with less than 200 people, they can scale in the billions using technology. And the point is that efficiency has come over Wall Street, where it once employed more than 400,000 people. Today, there was just an article 2 days ago in the New York Post, it's 188,000. And so the standard in the private sector, it's obvious in the services that many of us are now using. Amazon, we're using services that are far more efficient and giving it to us at a better price. The challenge for education, though, is how do you take something that's dependent upon a specific expertise, people, and at the same time keep it efficient, and at the same time also deal with the fact that we have a property tax system in Nassau County that's broken, and yet if you look at the 5 highest county tax districts in the country, 5 of them are right here in New York State: Westchester, Nassau County, Suffolk County, and Manhattan, and I believe one of the other boroughs in New York City. 5 of the highest property taxes in the country. And there just needs to be an awareness that I think most of the people in Rockville Center feel like the school system is one of the best points of education that they make here, one of the best investments. No one's questioning that. I think what Wayne was probably trying to articulate is the fact that we're reaching a point where you can only continue to raise property taxes so much to the point that it doesn't counteract flight. It doesn't trigger flight from the community. And it's a very sensitive balance, and it's a sensitive conversation, but it's something that we need to be aware of. In fact, that public sector unions, public sector at large, may not be aware of just the raw amount of change that's going on in the private sector and the amount of disruption that's going on. Many people in the private sector no longer have a pension. Many people, you know, you ask them even if they're making 401k contributions. That's how efficient it's gotten. And so there just needs to be an awareness. And I think this board has been attentive in that matter. I think the administration is owed a great deal of credit for operating within a number of the challenges that come from dealing with federal government, local government, et cetera. You're to be applauded. But I just wanted to kind of reiterate kind of just what folks are dealing with in the private sector. It's been a challenge. I know you're aware of it, but I just think it needs to be communicated. The system in Nassau County is broken. It's broken in Suffolk County. The idea that you can have somebody come challenge your taxes every year, and then lay off the balance on people. Well, the best example I'll cite to people is that my property taxes have more than doubled in 10 years, but I know the value of my home has not. And that's kind of the rule of thumb. If we don't have some exponential growth in our state economy, in our local economy, we are driving flight. And the last thing I'll leave you with is, you know, the governor's a terrific leader. I differ with him on some things, but the lack of awareness of the amount of the private sector leaving New York State, particularly Manhattan, is very disconcerting to me. You pick up the annual report that the mayor releases for the village of Rockville Center, and it always states where are the predominant amount of people that live in the village of Rockville Center employed. And last year it caught my eye, 1 in 4 people employed in financial services. And I can tell you for a fact, there used to be 48 primary dealers. Think of it being like 48 baseball teams. Today there's only 20. It used to employ 400,000 people. It's at 188,000, and there's predictions that that will be cut in half in the next 5 years. And then you take a look at where are those jobs going. Some people are saying they're going overseas. It's not just overseas. Deutsche Bank has built all of their operations and their trading floor in Jacksonville, Florida. Credit Suisse is currently moving more than 1,000 jobs to North Carolina, to Raleigh in the Research Triangle. JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup are now moving jobs back again down to Tampa, Florida and Delaware. And I could go on, I could cite all of these for you, but what it shows is these are the big paying private sector jobs, and they're not in New York anymore. And when they're not in New York anymore, the people that work in financial services are going to follow those jobs. So I appreciate everything you're doing, but I think it's incumbent sometimes to communicate up, and I just kind of wanted to share those thoughts with you and just give you a different perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Brian DeRubio, 1 Hendrickson Avenue. For Mr. Bartels, could you just tell us the pilot payment that Avalon Bay, how much is that going to the school district these days? And was the new addition that they're putting up, was that also under a pilot? And I guess the question is then, if it is, and for both, when do they end? And if you can make some sort of judgment on what do you think their fair value contribution should be given the size of the property? Thank you.
Avalon Bay started with their first project. Their first pilot payment was $217,000 a year when they first opened up. That will max out after 15 years at $940,000. The phase 2, the latest phase, is about 47% of that. Basically, the pilot turned out to be based on the number of units, which was 47% of the previous number. They took the pilot and it just took 47% of it. So that in the first year, which will probably be next year, will be $102,830 and max out at $444,000.
Does that also have a 15-year term? The
Yes.
second?
It's also a 15-year term, so that will max it at different times.
Okay, and then after the 15-year term, does the IDA, Town of Hempstead IDA, then give them another pilot, or does that automatically revert to more so market rates?
It goes right on the tax rolls. They do not get a second IDA.
They don't?
They have one
Okay.
shot at it. No, that's it.
And so the first one went online, was it about 7 years ago? Was it 6 years ago?
But I don't think it's Town of Hempstead IDA. I think that's okay.
No, it is the Town of Hempstead.
Town of Hempstead.
It is, yeah, we challenged, just so you know, just
I
for
know
the
you
record.
challenged it.
We challenged it.
Yep, I know you did.
Both times we challenged it. And the second time, we did it with an attorney. First time I did it, tried to do it on my own and failed. Second time, we did it with an attorney. We thought we had a good shot at it. I remember going with members of the Board of Education, trying to get a hearing, and in fact, we did. They thanked us very much, and then did whatever they wanted to do.
Because I think at the last I saw, the number was 355. I think the first project is about 611,000 square feet, and it was 355,000. It was basically turned out to about 60 cents per square foot that you're paying for Avalon Bay. And when I look at my own home taxes, I think I'm up to $3.50 or $4 a square foot. So the difference is substantial. And as you know, we're looking for new sources of revenue. I know we can't break the IDA, but it would be helpful just to get a sense. And it's a little, I thought it was 10 years. I didn't realize it was 15 years.
15, yeah.
It's going to be a while before we get that benefit from that project.
Look, any pressure that we can put on them to reverse it, you know what's going on with Green Acres and one of the valley streams. I think it's exposed a problem. They talked to us at the time about employment, and in fact, they employed, I think, 8 people.
Yep.
You know, bringing jobs to a job creator. So I just was sorely disappointed that we were never part of that discussion. We never had an opportunity to, in fact, expose the reality of what it was that the taxes could have brought to Rockville Center, but did not. And of course, as you probably are very well aware, and it was the backbone of what it was that we were trying to argue, is that it was a shift, no matter what they thought in terms of jobs and what benefit it might bring to this community. What it really did was to shift to the homeowners, to your house and mine, the cost that they were not paying in taxes. So we're very much aware of that, and we need an army the next time.
Maybe one final question. The village was actually able to get more money out of them outside of the IDA. Any comments or thoughts on what they were successful at and any way for the board to replicate it?
I can only tell you that in the first round, we had negotiated what we thought was some kind of a settlement. They were going to build a classroom on Riverside School, and then backed out of it when they found out that they had to go through the state education department in order to get approval. And that was the end of that discussion. We tried as best we could. We invited them in to have discussions. They had 2 or 3 times that they meet with us to discuss what, if anything, they would do for the school district in the second round. And the answer was, thank you very much, but I don't think so.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come forward about any questions?
You know, on the IDA subject. On the IDA subject, we need some reform for the IDA.
Thank you.
And reform comes from the state level and our state legislators when you meet with them. What galls me, I know it's not in our district here, every auto dealership on Sunrise Highway from the city line through Lynbrook received IDA pilots, and they're a tourism. I didn't know buying a car was a tourism destination, but they twist the definition. They made them into tourism destinations. You have an ally in the governor that wants it changed. I think there's a new awareness at Newsday to publicize it. There's also a new awareness by the Hempstead Town Board where they replace the members, and that's another area I just don't want you to think I pick on you guys for better transparency and full disclosure. And not to just pick on Avalon, they are not the only IDA subject in this community and the only pilot. You have others.
Yes, we do.
We have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I'd like you to put it on your website. Tell the public, all the pilots in the community and all the IDA. Put it on the website.
Okay.
Use the power of your website.
We have met with the Hempstead Town councilman and about the makeup of the Hempstead IDA, and we gave them some suggestions, and they are going back, and hopefully we'll have some
I'm not interested in serving there.
You're not?
No, okay, I just wanted to make that disclosure.
Wouldn't that be a conflict for you?
Yeah, well, I understand, but I wouldn't be interested.
Yeah.
Make it a joke, Mark. Light it up.
I see.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on to items for action. I think we can,
You can do it by acclamation.
oh, yes, you all can go now.
Thank you.
Class dismissed.
Class dismissed, yeah, that's a good. See, you're so quiet over there, I didn't even realize you were still here. We can do this by acclamation.
Yes.
The PAR and the addendum. Okay, can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we're good from your, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? A motion to return to executive session for negotiations and litigation.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. John. Oh, Johnson. He walked up the aisle. Freezing in here.
John Murphy.
No, John
Scalise.
I think we should keep these on our microphones.
Greg really tested him and told me.
Yeah,
Keep them on the microphone. That looks nice.
right from the start.
How much are they?
Freezing in the
How much are they selling?
Oh, really?
No, was it? Did we need to say?
Can you tie the boat on?
We're not doing it yet, right? We're not doing it yet. Right. Thank you. I remembered as I asked.
They want us to take the bows, guys.
Oh, a bow?
Oh, we get a
They want us
bow?
to take the bows.
We get a
Well,
bow?
we should pay
Get a
for
bow.
it. Are they still here?
I was gonna go get
A form.
yeah, form.
Right, that's what I
I'm
was
gonna go get a form. Now I'm gonna take a boat too.
I would gladly take one, but I want to donate for it.
Yes.
This is a nice boat. I'm gonna go get a form. Do you want a form for a boat? Okay. Who's not taking your boat? John.
No, I have one. Mark didn't take his bow.
No, he got a boat.
They must have an extra one in between.
I'll
All
take
right.
it.
I'm gonna go get a form. Anybody want a form?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you.